My name is Sadie Kirk, I'm 33 years old. I quit my job when I got married, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom. My family consists of my husband Sean, our daughter Mirabelle, and myself, a family of 3. It might seem rare these days, but Sean and I had an arranged marriage. My father is a wealthy man and has been a major landowner since my grandfather's time. Sean is the son of the president of a company my father invested in and married me as an adopted son-in-law. When I was first introduced to Sean, my father told me gently, he's the son of an acquaintance, a promising young man. Of course, if you don't like him, you're free to say no. Sean was so nervous and stiff at the encouragement from my father, I couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps he felt the weight of the company's future on his shoulders. Having distanced myself from romantic relationships for certain reasons, I found his attitude refreshing. Hi, nice to meet you. I look forward to getting to know you. Likewise, I look forward to it too. As a result, after a few months of dating, we got married. Although our meeting was through an arranged marriage, we fell in love with each other and decided to marry. After discussing it with Sean, I quit my job and started a family. A year later, we were blessed with a daughter, Mirabelle, and you could say our marriage has been very smooth sailing. At least, that's how it appears from the outside. Welcome back, Sean. You're home early today. I'm home, Sadie. Yeah, I managed to finish work early today. Mirabelle, I'm home. Daddy, welcome home. Mirabelle, have you been a good girl today? I have. Sean, shall we have dinner first? Yeah, let's do that. By the way, what's for dinner? Tonight's dinner is Sean's favorite, chicken with honey mustard. Yay! I'll go change right away. Oh, and don't forget to wash your hands and gargle. I know. Sean, with his suit jacket slung over his arm, rushes down the hallway. Mirabelle and I watch his back before returning to the living room. It's rare for Sean, who's busy working as the next company president, to come home before dinner, and it's been a while since the 3 of us gathered around the dining table together. Normally, you'd be happy to have the family together for a meal. However, I had reasons for not feeling that way. Oh. I wonder if I managed to act as usual, as I stroke my cheek. Mom, what's wrong? Oh. Mirabelle, it's nothing. Let's get dinner ready. Okay. As I carry the meals to the table, I secretly ponder. Sean seemed his usual self. Let's be clear. I suspected Sean of having an affair. I hadn't caught him red-handed. So, this was just a woman's intuition. Lately, I've sensed something off about Sean's behavior. He's never done this before, but now he's frequently on his phone even when all 3 of us are together. Whether he's absorbed in his phone or not, he often gives half-hearted responses when spoken to. Unless Mirabelle shakes him hard, he doesn't even look our way. When he's not with his phone, even when he's talking, he seems distracted. I vaguely thought it might be a mid-marriage slump. Or perhaps the start of smartphone addiction? I don't necessarily want us to be overly affectionate, but until now, he seemed to pay normal attention to us and we got along well. Has Sean changed, or has he always been like this, constantly on his phone? Or, have I just started noticing these little things more? It feels too simplistic to conclude he's cheating just because he's always on his phone. There have been times when I've smelled women's perfume on Sean's suit. But that could be from any female colleague at his company. Does that mean he's been close enough for scents to transfer? Such were my restless days, until one day he said. After coming home, Sean took a shower and was having his reheated dinner when he mentioned. A business trip? Another sudden plan, huh? Yeah, it got decided all of a sudden, so it's a bit of a hassle. Sorry to leave the house stuff all to you for a while. No, it's important work. Do what you can. Yeah. Oh, and look forward to the souvenirs. I'll bring back a lot. You're going for work, not sightseeing, you know. I couldn't help but laugh at Sean's lighthearted comment. A few days later, Mirabelle and I saw Sean off at the front door as he left for his business trip. 2 days after that, while I was folding laundry, my phone rang. Wondering who it could be, an unfamiliar voice asked, "Is this Sadie Kirk?" "Ah, yes, that's me. Sorry to call suddenly. I'm with the police."
What? The police? Why would the police be calling my cell?
The voice from the police dropped a bombshell. Your husband has been in an accident and is undergoing emergency surgery. Please come to the hospital immediately with family members.
What?
The shock momentarily wiped my mind blank. My husband, Sean, in an accident? How could this be? He was supposed to be on a business trip, so he got into an accident there. Ah, okay. Please tell me which hospital. I hurriedly noted down the hospital's address, jumped into the car, and called my parents on the way to ask them to take care of Mirabelle, who should still be at school. My father was shocked to hear that Sean had been in an accident. I felt the same way. The feeling was the same for me. The shock of a family member being in an accident was overshadowed by surprise, giving it an unreal feeling. I raced the car into the hospital parking lot and ran up to the reception counter.
Excuse me. My husband was brought in for an emergency operation after an accident.
Out of breath, I spoke to the receptionist, who widened their eyes and made a quick phone call before saying, "This way, please." As I hurried towards the operating room, the reality of the situation slowly began to sink in. Please, let him be safe. That's what I prayed as I was led to what would be my second shock of the day. My parents, who arrived later, felt the same. My father's eyes widened as he exclaimed in anger, "This has got to be a joke." I resolved to take revenge on Sean, no, on them, after witnessing Sean's betrayal. The next day. Sean stirred on the bed. The doctor had said that Sean's emergency surgery finished late last night and he would likely remain asleep for a while as the anesthesia wore off. Surely, the time for him to wake up had come. I clenched my hands tightly on my lap.
Where am I?
You're in the hospital, I told him calmly as he looked around. Surprised by my sudden voice upon waking, Sean tried to jolt up in bed, but couldn't.
What's this?
You just had surgery, so you shouldn't move around too much. Though, in your condition, you probably can't move much anyway. Sean was wrapped in bandages from head to toe, like a real-life mummy, with only his face uncovered. I felt a strange sense of awe that patients could actually end up like this in real life. Sean managed to move his eyes around wildly, looking at me. Right now, curtains were drawn around Sean's bed, creating a secluded space, making it seem like it was just the two of us. Do you remember what happened? Sean groaned softly. His face, pale from just waking up, lost even more color, turning completely white. You were in an accident and brought to this hospital. An accident? Yes, it seems it was quite a serious one. It's already on the news. You were brought here and underwent emergency surgery. The surgery was successful, but you'll have to stay in the hospital for a while, the doctor said. Ah, right, sorry, Sadie, for causing trouble. Hospitalization and all. I'm sorry for making it such a big deal, putting you through all this. I gave Sean a cold look as he spoke in a barely audible voice. But you were supposed to be on a business trip, right? The location of this accident is completely in the opposite direction of where you said you were going. Moreover, it was in a tourist spot in a hot spring town, which doesn't seem related to your work at all.
I got mixed up.
Mixed up? Yes, mixed up. You know, the trip was decided so last minute, and everything was hectic, right? Because of that, I accidentally gave you the wrong location. And, as for the trip not being related to my work, that's not entirely true. I can't go into details, but there was a plan to start a new project, and for that. The audacity to spout such blatant lies. I was appalled. The more you desperately try to cover it up, the more flaws come out. You'd better just be honest. Eh? Sadie. You were cheating, weren't you?
No, wait, it was an affair, wasn't it?
Sean gasped at my conclusive words. His reaction confirmed my suspicions. Indeed, he had been unfaithful. Despite better judgment, Sean started making excuses again. No. That's not true. I wasn't having an affair. Why would you suddenly say that? It's not sudden. I've been suspecting you for a long time. But why? We've always been getting along so well. Despite that. At first, it was just my intuition. Now that it's come to this, there's no hiding it. Neither for you nor for me. How could this be? Why? Because I mistakenly gave you the wrong destination for my business trip, you suspect me? That's just a minor mistake. To doubt your husband over such a trivial thing, aren't you being a bit irrational?
The one being irrational is you, right?
When I firmly stated that, Sean froze with a look of confusion. I sighed deeply. Did the accident make you lose your memory too? Have you already forgotten that when you said you were leaving for a business trip, you were actually with someone you would never take on a business trip, and you both got into an accident together? What? The person you were secretly meeting with under the pretense of a business trip. That was my sister, Natalie, wasn't it? Ah, why do I have to be the one to say such a truth? But this was a decision I made myself. There's no turning back now. I stared intently at Sean lying on the bed. As I laid out the facts, he opened and closed his mouth, but no words came out. His silence was the answer. Yes, he wasn't brought in alone. His companion, that is, his lover, was also emergency transported and underwent surgery. That person was my own sister, Natalie. The shock of that moment was indescribable. Natalie emerged from the operating room alongside Sean. The surgeon told us they had been brought in together, and while I was shocked, part of me understood. My parents, who rushed over, instantly grasped the situation upon seeing Natalie asleep on the bed. Hearing my father's outraged voice, I resolved that I never let them get away with this. Perhaps unable to withstand my gaze any longer, Sean blurted out in a panicked voice. Ah, no, it's not like that. Natalie and I, we weren't.
Then why were you traveling together?
Natalie isn't even an employee at your company. That is.
It wasn't a business trip, but actually an affair trip, right? That's why you lied to me and left the house. Because, in reality, it wasn't a business trip at all, but a trip with your affair partner.
No. It really was a business trip. I just happened to meet Natalie there, and she said she was stranded and couldn't get back, so I thought we might as well go together, that's all. As Sean continued with his transparent excuses, I sighed again. Then I stood up and grabbed the curtain. I wonder if you can make such excuses in front of these people. I pulled the curtains surrounding the bed open.
No!
Sean let out a pitiful scream. Emerging from behind the curtain were my parents, Sean's parents, and Natalie's husband, Oscar. They stood silently, encircling Sean's bed.
Sean, you. Dad. Please, help me. Clear up this misunderstanding with Sadie. Don't be ridiculous. You fool.
Sean's father responded sharply to his pleading gaze. His face flushed with anger. Sean's mother was no different. Both of Sean's parents had expressions that could only be described as furious. In contrast, my parents quietly stared at Sean, but their eyes clearly showed contempt. Only Oscar, Natalie's husband, seemed to stand back a bit, watching how things unfolded. Sean involuntarily closed his eyes at my father's shout, yet he still had the spirit to mutter complaints. Don't start yelling all of a sudden. As you can see, I'm seriously injured. Sean's father glared at him sharply.
All I've been hearing from you is this disrespectful attitude. You weren't on a business trip, were you? I don't recall ever ordering such a thing. Dad. What are you saying? Sure, I wasn't directly ordered by you, but I was really. I've already found out you threatened department head and secretary to fake this business trip. Stop with the poor excuses. What? Why are they going against me?
The ugly expression on Sean's face as he spat those words must truly be his real nature.
Sean! How could you do this to the people who have looked after you since you joined the company?
Sean clicked his tongue, seemingly ignoring his mother-in-law's rebuke. However, noticing my disenchanted gaze, he began to stutter. This is, Sadie, it's not like that. I really was. Enough. There's no clearing it up with you. Sadie? I'll go talk to Natalie. Ignoring Sean's panicked calls, I turned my back on him. I headed towards Natalie's hospital room. Natalie and I are sisters, 5 years apart. We were both lavishly loved by our parents and grew up without wanting for anything. However, Natalie always seemed to harbor one-sided animosity towards me. She repeatedly borrowed and then broke my clothes, books, toys, and each time, Natalie would be scolded by our parents. As we grew older through elementary and middle school, our worlds expanded, but Natalie's behavior only escalated instead of subsiding. She would badmouth me to my friends or ostentatiously flirt with boys I had a slight interest in. More than being hurt, I was simply puzzled as to why my sister would go to such lengths to antagonize me. Frankly, Natalie's behavior was troublesome but also childish. So, while it was bothersome, it rarely hurt me. That probably irritated Natalie even more. After I got married and left home, our interactions became almost non-existent, to the point where I wasn't even invited to her wedding. My parents were angry with Natalie, but I thought it was her once-in-a-lifetime moment to shine as the bride, so I decided not to attend her wedding. Natalie hardly worked a proper job, but after getting married, she seemingly became a full-time housewife. Since then, even when we met during New Year or Oban holidays, our interaction was limited to me ignoring her one-sided snide remarks. I only exchanged brief greetings with her husband, Oscar, not knowing much about him, but I thought he must be a decent man to put up with Natalie. I opened the door to Natalie's hospital room. Like Sean, Natalie was also wrapped in bandages all over her body, lying on the bed. I quietly approached the bed and drew the curtains around us.
Natalie?
You're awake, aren't you? Pretending to sleep is pointless. When I spoke in an indifferent tone, Natalie opened her eyes wide. Great. Just when I was comfortably sleeping, my sister has to wake me up. How annoying. No, I already heard from the nurse that you've been awake for a while. Huh?
That old lady can't keep her mouth shut, can she? Is it because of her age?
Natalie laughed crudely. Even towards the nurse who was taking care of her, what a thing to say. You were having an affair with Sean, weren't you? I already know. Huh? Oh, right. I had an accident in his car. This is just the worst.
Hey, answer me properly. You were having an affair with Sean, right? Yeah, if it's all out in the open now, then fine. Yes, I was having an affair with your husband, Sean.
Natalie shouted defiantly, throwing me a mocking look, but my mind was already made up, and it didn't waver in the slightest. That must have gotten through to her. After clicking her tongue, she started spilling details about the affair that I hadn't even asked for. But really, for you not to notice until something like this happened. You're such a fool, sis. Always acting all high and mighty, looking down on everything I do. And you didn't even notice your husband's infidelity right under your nose. What a joke. Hey, wanna know how long the affair has been going on? You do, right? Well, it started right after you gave birth to Mirabelle. Turns out, even a man who'd marry you can't resist a college girl leaning on him. Or should I say, especially a man who'd marry you. He's been my sugar daddy ever since. Sean is just a bundle of complexes. Flatter him a bit, and he bought me anything, take me anywhere. He's been a great ATM. And you're married now. You still continued the affair? Didn't you feel bad for your husband? Why would I? Besides, I married Oscar because he's docile and never talks back to me. Plus, his family's not as rich as ours, but they're still well off. You're going to inherit everything from our parents anyway, right? They've always been on your side, leaving me with hardly anything. Natalie sighed heavily after saying that. But dealing with Sean became a hassle, so I came up with a plan. Sis, you think I'm Sean's only mistress? There are actually more. I introduced him to lots of girls I know. If you check his phone, you'll probably see it's filled from top to bottom with his mistress's contacts. Your number's probably at the very bottom. Natalie's face, as she laughed vilely, was the ugliest I'd ever seen. But now I understand. That's why Sean started fiddling with his phone so often. So, my intuition wasn't wrong. I just hadn't realized that the other person was my sister. Then, the curtain was abruptly pulled open. Entering were my parents and Natalie's husband, Oscar. Huh? Natalie made a dumbfounded face at their sudden appearance. However, she quickly realized and glared at me sharply.
Hey, big sis. Why did you call everyone here? This is not cool. It's natural to call the family when someone has had an accident, isn't it?
Technically, I hadn't called them because Natalie had an accident, but that's beside the point. As I replied with a composed face, Natalie gritted her teeth in frustration.
You always do this. Always sucking up to mom and dad, making me the one who gets scolded. Despite being nothing but a spoiled daughter of a wealthy family with no other redeeming qualities. Be quiet.
My father directed a sharp, stern gaze at Natalie.
Do you even realize what you've done? Having an affair with Sean isn't just betraying Sadie, but also betraying Oscar.
Really, it's shameful. Where did we go wrong in raising you? Do you not have a heart?
What? Don't yell at me. It's not my fault. Sean came on to me, I just responded. If I had refused, who knows what he would have done? Right, Oscar, it's not my fault, right?
Yes, it's your fault. Oscar said quietly and pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket. It was a filled-out divorce papers. It must have been unexpected for Natalie too, as her eyes widened in shock. What? Oscar, why?
Why? This divorce form was found in your room. You wanted to divorce me, right? I feel the same way. I'm going to file this divorce form now. After that, you and I are officially strangers.
What? No, that's not right. That was, well, that. Sean forced me to sign it. It wasn't my will. So it's invalid.
No, you've been having affairs with men other than Sean, right? What?
That was a fact neither my parents nor I were aware of, so we were taken aback. But indeed, knowing her history of relationships, it wouldn't be surprising if she had multiple affairs. Sean was just one of them. That.
This divorce form might have been a prop to spice up your affair, but if that's the case, I'm happy to make use of it. Well then, goodbye.
Oscar said this, gave a slight bow to me and my parents, and left the hospital room.
What? What? Fine then. I never wanted a boring man like you anyway.
Natalie spat out bitter words towards Oscar's back. Honestly, it sounded nothing more than sour grapes. My parents and I sighed almost simultaneously. Natalie. What I want to know isn't just about the affair. You've been using our cards to splurge, haven't you? What? Her reaction was as if she wondered how we found out, but it would be odd not to be caught nowadays. Having an affair with your sister's husband and then splurging with your parents' cards. We've been troubled by your behavior for too long, but this is the last straw. We're cutting ties with you for good. We'll take care of the hospital bills, but that's it. You're on your own for everything else.
You can't. Abandon your own daughter.
Without answering Natalie, my father motioned for my mother and me to leave the room.
No, no. No.
We heard my sister's screams as the door closed behind us. A few days later, I visited Sean's hospital room with the divorce papers, and also presented him with evidence of his affairs that I obtained from his smartphone. I don't want to divorce. Instead of crying, just agree to the divorce quickly.
No, no. It was a moment of madness. Forgive me.
Absolutely not.
Sean, stop disgracing yourself further. Agree to the divorce gracefully. Right. You caused enough troubles.
Sean, if you agree, I'll sign for you, so don't worry. Oh, no. Sean was in tears, but at this moment, he couldn't even wipe them away himself. He reluctantly agreed to the divorce, and my father signed on his behalf. No, how did it come to this?
It's all your own doing. I'll be claiming alimony and child support, so be prepared.
As I coldly stated that, Sean let the tears overflow again. Perhaps because everyone here thought he had no right to cry, a somewhat awkward silence filled the room. And so, our divorce was successfully finalized. Both Sean and Natalie ended up suffering from the after-effects of their accidents, making a normal life impossible for them. Naturally, Sean had no choice but to quit his job, so my in-laws agreed to cover the alimony and child support on his behalf. My father also decided to reduce his investment in Sean's company following this incident. Sean seems to have been thoroughly blamed by his in-laws and all the relatives. To make matters worse, he was also sued by the parents of one of his mistresses, who turned out to be a minor, leading him into a bleak future. Speaking of bleak futures, Natalie was in the same boat. Already in debt, Natalie was forced to promise to repay the amount she had squandered using our parents' credit cards. Her prospects after discharge from the hospital were completely uncertain, but that was no longer my concern. As a single mother, I decided to return to work. I also began studying how to manage the wealth I would eventually inherit from my parents. Mirabelle seemed to quickly adapt to life without Sean.
Despite being busy with work, study, household chores, and child rearing, my daughter and I are living fulfilling days together.